missing training for me was just like unacceptable unless I was on deathbed. And it also so it's a highly stressful and pressurized environment, I would say, and that's something that I don't miss. And that's the biggest sacrifice is that I'm not upset about it now, but I guess I wish I could change is when I've missed my birthday. Most of my birthdays or New Year's or Chris, I'm on the plane or I'm on the train. Yeah. Try your kids in as many sports as possible because you don't know where the natural talent lies, and just because the dad was an ice hockey player at a very good level does not mean that your kids are going to be the same. My wife always says you're dead inside because you don't show any high emotions or low emotions. And the one thing if I had to take something back, is to have an education.
Right, okay.
I've put all my eggs in one basket.
Yep.
You always naturally start panicking, you're linking yourself to that, all these, symptoms or knowing how much damage you've done to your own brain, especially the style of hockey that I've played. I played a physical game.
Yeah. So it's an absolute pleasure to have one of the most fascinating and determined guests we've had on the show so far. As you will hear from his journey to succeed, it has been truly extraordinary. So it's with great pleasure to welcome Max Birbraer to the show to share his secrets and sacrifices of his ice hockey journey and much, much more. So Max, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So before we start, so the viewers and listeners can get to know you, my children have come up with 10 quick-fire would you rather questions. And today, because it's a family portrait, we have Sebastian asking the questions to you. So, you ready, Sebastian? Yeah. Okay, there we go.
Would you rather game or read a book?
Definitely game.
Would you rather win $1 million or earn $1 million?
I gotta be honest, I'd rather win $1 million, I think.
Would you rather have a takeaway or eat out?
Ooh, I do prefer a good takeaway, but I think I'm gonna go with takeout. Sorry, to eat in a restaurant, to sit down somewhere with the family, preferably.
What is your favourite food, Max?
Indian now,
okay,
because I never been exposed to Indian before, and I've come to this country when I was about 15 years ago, and I discovered Indian, and I slowly upgraded in spice levels.
Would you rather listen to Stormzy or Drake?
Definitely Drake, because he's from Toronto, where I actually lived and stayed.
Would you rather wear Nike or Adidas?
Ooh, I used to be an Adidas guy, but I think I've made a transition to Nike now.
Would you rather own a Bugatti or a Lamborghini?
Ooh, I go with my son's favorite, Lamborghini.
Would you rather do cardio or lift weights?
Ooh, I probably lift weights because I quite dread cardio, to be honest, but you have to do it.
Would you rather play Spider-Man or the Incredible Hulk in a Marvel film?
Definitely Incredible Hulk. Yeah, definitely.
Would you rather play with prime Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux?
Oh, that's good pronunciation there, bud. I think I would play with Wayne Gretzky, I think. Although I wanted to play with both of them because Wayne Gretzky was the best setup man in history, and he had the most assists in history of ice hockey.
Would you rather win the Olympics or the World Championships?
I think the Olympics probably, because it's the ultimate standard. It's probably even higher than World Championships.
Super. Thank you very much for that, Sebastian.
Thank you.
Right, you're going to leave me and Max now for a bit of a chat?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Okie dokie. Thank you for that, Max.
Oh, that's all right.
Okay, then. So as you know, the podcast is to shine a light on the secrets and sacrifices all families go through to allow their children to become elite level athletes, and probably none more so important with your family journey as well, which I'm sure we'll kind of talk about kind of shortly. So my first question is, could you take me back to when you was growing up in Kazakhstan and how family life was, and what first made you fall in love with ice hockey?
Yeah, so I guess compared to maybe other stories that you've had, perhaps a little bit different, a little bit
Yeah,
unorthodox, but um, the sports in old USSR, if you will, at the time when I was born,
yeah,
until they fell apart and became their own sort of countries like Kazakhstan and
yeah, yeah.
standalone countries. Um, the sports were funded by the government essentially, so it's
Okay.
all government funded. Is it to a great level? Probably not. They always suffered with shortages of equipment and sticks and whatnot. But
Yeah.
the basics were provided. So
Okay.
effectively, for the family, if they wanted to, it was almost fairly. Not, I don't want to say free, but most of the cost was covered. In exchange, there was a lot of pressure put on the kids, and
Right. Okay.
you had different grades of sort of performance. So when I was growing up, I was not a slow learner, but what's the wording I'm looking for? Late bloomer, if you will.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I was playing what is called the second team. So I
Okay.
think by the age of 10, then I got moved up to the first team, and so on and so on. It escalated to me becoming fairly good at hockey, as obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then career progressed. But the way I was introduced to hockey is because my grandfather was a super fan, if you will, of that local
Yeah.
team that I was growing up. It was a hockey town, again,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
will. So that was the main sport. So he's literally at 6 years old. He walked me into a rink and off I went.
Yeah.
The big notable there, I guess, is from age of 6. I think we were trained 6, 7 times a week,
Wow.
sometimes even two a day. So
Yeah.
you'll have your off ice training and then you have on ice training. So it's very
Okay.
serious, and one of the two sides of the coin, if you will, the training is so intense and potentially led to burnout in some cases, I
Yeah.
suppose.
Okay.
But you don't find that out till later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the positives are obviously the kids becoming fairly professional, fairly skillful
Mhm.
at a very young age. However, it's this pressure. So you've always been almost threatened that if you don't keep up certain level, you'll
Yeah.
be either demoted or just been asked not to
Yeah.
participate in that team.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a bit of a different structure. Not like here, I can just pay with a certain club and just put my kids in and just go have some
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So it's quite a professional, strict approach right from, as I
Okay.
remember, 6, 7 years old.
So
Um,
is this professional teams, or is this just like, say, do you know, like kind of grassroots kind of community teams as
Yeah,
we
so
have over
the
here?
teams normally divides by your age group, and
Okay.
we don't. It's literally just one age. So if I was born in 1980, like I
Yep.
am, I would be with that group,
Right.
81s and 83s. It's not like a sort of here's a little bit more broader, under 18s or
Yeah.
youth.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could have, but anyway, so if you've been accepted, if you will, on a team, then you obviously have your trials. They they coach you and they take care of you and what's on. They take you all the way, and it was obviously this team is associated in the
Yep.
way. You have your junior program and then you have your professional program with that
Yep.
same organization in that town, effectively. So you'll have different levels. So I was lucky to get to the top level and moved on to further my career. So yeah, so my grandfather essentially put me in, and as far as I remember, my grandfather never missed a game. In fact, he never missed a training session. So
Ah.
he had great interest
Yep.
in it and a passion. And in the beginning, effectively, that's who I played for. I felt like mentally,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
was trying to not to please, but I knew my grandfather was proud of me that I'm actually playing in the junior system for the team that he was absolutely diehard fan for,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that obviously developed in actual passion. And
Yep.
me missing training for me was just like unacceptable unless I was
Yeah.
on deathbed. And you also had that fear, and I guess the negative element of this pressure was of missing practice and potentially
Right.
being then scrapped and being forgotten about, and lose that privilege of
Yeah.
being on that team. So it's a highly stressful and pressurized environment, I would say, and that's something that I don't miss, and that's something that one of the elements why my family kind of immigrated and left
Yeah. Yeah.
at one point when I was 16 to go to Israel. As
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
not just with hockey, but it was felt like across the board.
Yeah. So
Um,
this at that age then, as I'd read, that was the point where your family moved. That was the point where you thought your hockey career might end, wasn't it? But then you ended up finding an ice rink in Tel Aviv. It was, wasn't it, where
yeah,
you started training. And I read that there was a coach, Paul Rosen, a Canadian coach. It was, wasn't it, who spotted you?
yeah,
And I read a quote by him, and he said the thing that kind of made you stand out was your natural ability on the ice. He said it kind of blew him away, didn't it?
yeah. Well, I mean, luckily, yeah, Paul was a trainer. He was the equipment trainer for Israeli national team, but he also did a
Right.
bit of coaching in North America.
Okay.
So in order, so the sacrifice, of course, I personally, I guess my family made that sacrifice, knowing that when we immigrated
Yeah.
from Kazakhstan to Israel, potentially that was complete end to my hockey career
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's kind of more sand than ice in that country. So I was mentally prepared, and only by
Okay.
chance
Yeah.
the my father's friend who we stayed with in Israel in the first couple of weeks before we found our own flat and
Yeah.
kind of integrated, he happened to actually coach a little local team right in town where we were. And he
Okay.
said, "Do you want to just come out and just do a little tryout?" And I showed up, and I didn't even put any of the equipment. All I had is the skates, and he gave me a stick, and I was in my jeans effectively, just with the
Right.
stick. He said, "Can you just do one lap round?" I said, "Oh, okay." And I can see he was like, "Okay, a bit." I don't know whether he was impressed or what. He said, "Oh, can you skate backwards? Can you do the same lap backwards?" And I did the lap backwards, and then he said his third thing was, "Do you want to play for the national team?" I said, "What?" I didn't even know there was a national team in Israel. And that kind of
Yep.
just snowballed. That gave me that door into I played for under 16s, under 18s,
Yeah.
even with the seniors at that level.
Yeah.
Because obviously the level is lower, and I had this ability that I
Yep.
actually could participate across the board, not only in the
Yeah.
junior
Yeah.
but even for the seniors. So that year, basically did not go to school. All I've been
Yep.
doing is going to tournaments and just
Wow.
representing Israel. And that's where I've met Paul, who was the
Yeah.
equipment manager on one of the tournaments. And he just said, right, like, what are you doing in Israel? If you want to pursue your hockey, you need to come to the
Yep.
best country and the best place, in fact, in the
Yep.
world
Yep.
for development to Toronto. He said, I'm happy for you to stay at my house for a few weeks while you do the tryouts and so on. And just kind of, I flew there. That's where, again, my family made another sacrifice at 16 years old. They allowed me to get on the plane with one massive hockey bag and one massive clothes bag. That's all I
Yep.
had with me to unknown across the pond
Yep.
into Toronto, which I basically never returned from.
Right. Okay.
I stayed with Paul for several days, and I think we had a tryout. The first tryout I did went great, and I've made the team, and then I started my junior career in Canada then. So Israel was in the way a pit stop,
Yep.
um, which was not anticipated at all. So yeah, it was interesting. Sacrifices were made, so I can only imagine what my parents were thinking and how
Yeah.
they had to part with me. I have almost a 16-year-old now. He's going to be 16 in a few months, and
Okay.
I'm not sure I would have be able to do that with him, if you know
Yep.
what I mean.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so now looking back, thinking that must have been tough
Yep.
for my parents just to let your son go into unknown on his own,
Yep.
which I still consider my son as a fairly little kid
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
16. So.
Okay. Okay. So who would you say you got your like hockey ability from and your passion from? Would you say it was your grandfather?
I guess it
With
was my grandfather originally who sort
yeah.
of planted the seed and put in the labor and hard work of putting me there. I mean,
Yeah.
my father was supportive as well, but that was a
Okay.
little bit later when he started to, when he saw that I was getting serious about it and commit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Natural ability, I don't know. I know my father played a little bit of a competitive football,
Okay.
um, so perhaps that came from him. But again, it literally, it was not there in the beginning. In fact,
Yeah.
I can't say that I was a promising young hockey player who was promised to make the top
Yeah.
level, like
Okay.
Premiership, right in the
Yep. Yep.
beginning. It developed slowly, and in fact, that was maybe like it was a slow burner a little bit.
Right. Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd normally ask if the professional athletes had like a normal childhood kind of growing up. However, from your stories, it was anything but a normal childhood from yourself, from what you've kind of described. However, when you'd almost made it professional, would you say the sacrifices were the same as kind of previous guests we've had on the show? So, for instance, we've had guests on who have said when they was on their journey to become a professional, they had to sacrifice going out with friends in the evening at the weekends. They'd come home from kind of practice rather than going out playing with their friends. They'd have to say like refuel, and then they'd be going to bed earlier than the friends because they'd be getting up earlier in the morning because they were doing like all the training. They'd miss going on like say family holidays, and they'd miss parties and things like that. Would you say you missed those things on your professional kind of journey as well?
Um, it was more. I think when it comes to sacrifice, I think I've now more on when I got older, not
Yep.
from my junior. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
with junior element, I think I literally have been sent to Canada at 16 years old
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
been given almost a blank slate. And I was
Yep.
fortunate there was a perfect storm of meeting right people
Yeah.
backed up by I guess my ability
Yep.
that allowed me to actually make professional first and get
Yep.
to almost the highest level possible in the world, which is a guy named Brad Robbins who became my
Okay.
agent. So
Yep.
him and Paul obviously knew each other. So that perfect storm of Paul enabling me to come and that early support,
Yep.
and then meeting Brad, who is a marketing genius, who was able to just take it to the next level,
Yep. Yep.
and then gave me that chance to not firstly get drafted by New
Yep.
Jersey Devils, and then so on, play in the second tier system, which is effectively like a championship level
Yep.
because they're affiliated.
Yep.
So I was on the double, sort of on the dual contract. So if I was gonna go up, so I did play about I think 6 or 7 games with New Jersey Devils as a preseason, kind of like like the showcase games. So
Yep.
that
Yep.
was the highlight of my career, I suppose. And I was right there, you know, up and down a little bit between would I make it, would I not, and then kind of went on like that for 3 years.
Yep.
In terms of the sacrifice, I didn't know whether I was making sacrifice or not. I just did what I knew best.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not have that direction or supervision of my parents because they
Yep.
weren't around.
Yep.
So thankfully, at least Brad and Paul was there
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
give me the basics and kind of guide me. The biggest sacrifice is that I'm not upset about it now, but I guess I wish I could change is when I became later on a father
Yep.
myself
Yep.
and got married and actually had a family. I
Yep.
could never be around on the weekends. All
Yeah.
games
Yep.
in hockey, we play mostly on the Saturday and Sunday, back-to-back games,
Right.
and
Okay.
sometimes additionally on like a Wednesday. So sometimes you could mostly have 2 games,
Yep.
sometimes three in the
Yeah. Yeah.
weekend, and it's physically demanding because it's a contact sport. But
Mhm.
nevertheless, the whole family have to work and adjust around me, but around my schedule,
Yeah.
around my pre-game naps,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. About
Yeah.
that Saturday and Sunday is not very relaxing in our house because I have to eat my breakfast at a certain point. I have to eat a
Yeah.
certain thing. I
Yeah.
have to take my pre-game nap at a certain time, and God
Yeah. Yeah.
forbid, kids are either loud or neighbor's dog is barking. It would just throw me off. So I'm very much a creature of habit and just doing
Yeah.
everything the same on not game day or even the day before. I had to eat same pasta bolognese, for example,
Yep.
on the night before the game. I don't know whether he actually made huge difference, but it was
Yeah.
definitely a mental sort of state or zone that you get into, um, from that even like a day before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I never spent time with my family on the weekend, so I've missed that
Yeah.
closeness and
See, I know from, I mean, like we've had many guests on the podcast now, which has been amazing for us to kind of hear so many different stories. And I think one of the main kind of themes is like kind of match day for all the athletes. So it comes to like say the weekend or whenever the games are, then there is that sacrifice of the athlete being away from the family and not seeing them from like if they're playing on the Saturday, they may go away on the Friday, so they're away from the Friday, Saturday. They might not come back on the same day on the
I mean,
Saturday when they
I mean
finish.
Christmas. The
Yeah,
same. The Boxing Day. We
yeah,
constantly had games on those.
yeah,
I don't. In fact, my birthday was always like I've missed my birthday. Most of my birthdays or New Year's or Chris. I'm on the plane or I'm on the train.
yeah,
So it's
yeah,
like those are type of the best moments for family.
yeah.
They were not. They almost were not there,
Yeah,
and
and this is
that's
and this
you
was one
can't
of the
replace them, can you?
no, you can't, and you can't get those memories back,
No.
unfortunately, can you? And I think that was one of the reasons why we wanted to start the podcast was to kind of shine the light on the secrets and the sacrifices that all the athletes go through because it's something that obviously we're on that journey with our eldest who's playing tennis and our two boys who are playing football. And it's not something that you kind of get told at the start of the journey. It's only when you're on that journey. So for us, we might go say a week without seeing our eldest daughter who's away playing tennis. But then like at the weekend when she does come back, if she's back at a weekend, my boys are away playing tennis, playing football, sorry. So we were saying like it'd be nice to kind of highlight to the parents almost and the families the sacrifices that do go in to being a professional kind of athlete because it's not something that gets kind of openly
And
kind
I
of
guess
talked about.
Yeah, and I guess it's not just the emotional
Yep.
sacrifices or time with the family that you make. It's the financial
Yeah.
burden that these sports are some more, some less.
Yeah.
But like I said, I mentioned to you before, I think hockey is one of the most expensive team sports that you can bring your child through. Similarly, I guess tennis as well is not
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
very. So now, as a parent, and I don't know if you probably had the question teed up, but um, I had to evaluate, you know,
Yep.
what sport am I actually going to put my kids in? You
Yeah.
know, first of all, they have to have interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I told myself, unless they have 100% interest, 100% commitment, and they're showing promise,
Yep.
I'm not going to encourage them. In fact, they
Yep.
don't play hockey.
Yeah. Right.
I mean,
Okay.
they've tried.
Yep.
My oldest tried to play ice hockey, and
Yep.
unfortunately had a couple of injuries. But
Okay.
he did not show like that he wanted it so to that bad to the point of let's invest time, let's
Yeah.
invest money. I
Yep.
would rather, and I also read another article, try your kids in as many sports as possible because there you don't know where the natural talent lies,
Yep.
and just because the dad was a ice hockey player at a very good level
Yeah.
does not
Yeah.
mean that your kids are going to be the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, in fact, that was my strategy. I'm just, go with the interest, go
Yep.
let them try as many sports as possible. If there's some sort of spark or a promise shown in some sort of sport, then let's invest time, let's
Yeah.
invest money.
Yeah.
Um, but
And
yeah,
that's similar what we did with Ava. I mean, when Ava was younger, my wife used to dance, so she started her in like all the dance classes, like kind of the tap and ballet. Um, and then she tried a gymnastics, she tried a horse riding, she tried football, she tried loads of different activities. And it kind of got to a point at a weekend or a midweek after school where she'd be like, "Oh, I don't really fancy doing this tonight. I don't really want to like kind of go." And that was for us the signal to say like, "Oh, she's not 100% kind of invested in whatever activity it was." However, she went down to the local tennis club at the time with one of her friends, and she was about 7 or 8 years old at the time, and she's ended up just staying on it. She loves the tennis, and she's played like kind of ever since. However, at the time, we wasn't sure whether she was going to stick at it. It was just another one of those. Oh, well, we'll try her at this sport, but it's exactly like you said. It's just allowing the children to participate and engage in them different physical activities and see which
to
ones they
me,
enjoy and they like.
that article that somebody quoted to me, literally, it was a few years ago about, you must try your kids
Yeah,
as many
yeah,
sports as possible. Just really stuck, and it became the main message
yeah,
because I
yeah,
now went through a full circle of my son went to join hockey, stopped, joined, stopped, joined rugby, stopped,
yeah,
rejoined rugby, stopped again.
yeah,
They are
yeah,
very flaky, and
yeah,
which means most likely that it's not hundred their heart, or perhaps not 100% in it, and it's not.
yeah,
They might be doing it for the wrong reason, just because the dad wants you to play football or
yeah,
rugby,
yeah. No, definitely.
or they're just not enjoying it as much as what their competitors are, because you see
Yeah,
the other kids and they live and breathe of that
yeah,
sport.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what my son's playing football now. He trains on a Wednesday, my youngest one, who's 6,
yeah,
and he plays on a Saturday. So really, it's 2 hours
yeah,
a week of football, and he's one of the worst kids in terms of skill and understanding football out there.
yeah,
However, he still goes.
yeah.
He likes the interaction part of it, hanging out
Hmm.
with his friends. And if I have an opportunity of 2 hours of him getting off the iPad and off the couch, then be it. So
Yeah,
we know we going there not for to become next
yeah,
Messi or Ronaldo, but we
yep,
go in there just to socialize, get off the couch, get fresh air,
yeah,
and that sort of thing.
yeah,
But now he's showing me that he might not actually be sporty. As
yep,
yes, I want him to be sporty. Yes, I want him to be like like his dad in terms of
yep.
sports career. But he likes acting.
Right. Ah, right. Okay.
He
Yeah,
likes singing. He likes dancing. He likes acting. So we are now researching and trying to put him into stage school. Perhaps
yep.
he wants to act.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
maybe he's not an athlete, a
Yeah,
natural
yeah.
athlete. So we just sticking to that model of let's try as many different things as possible.
Yeah, brilliant. So from being highlighted as one of Kazakhstan's top young players at the time, I'd read, and then being selected for Israel's under-18s team, and then the senior team. I think I'd read it was only 6 months later, which is an amazing achievement and shows how well you was doing at the time. To being the first Israeli national to be drafted for the NHL, which you mentioned before with New Jersey Devils in
Yeah.
2000, from winning two World Championship medals, gold medals as well. Um, how do you kind of personally cope with the peaks and troughs of your professional journey? Because I'm sure it's not all the kind of podium finishes like we've just kind of mentioned there. There is
Yeah.
kind of the ups and the downs. So how do you kind of personally cope with them? Is it relying on kind of the
These, I mean, these ups and downs, if you will,
yep,
they're gonna happen to everybody.
yep,
Early in my career, it's easy to say now, looking back, and identify these peaks and troughs. But if
yep,
I look back now, I probably didn't even know that I
yep.
was having these peaks and troughs, and
Okay.
probably didn't deal with them as well as I could now, because throughout the career I had a luxury of, because of the level that I play in, we had team psychologists.
Right. All right. Okay. Yeah.
Um, they started to just come in, and I was still playing under the old school sort of era
Yep.
where we didn't have the concussion protocols or
Yep.
mental help or anything like that. However, the sports psychologists just started to come in about performance. It wasn't
Okay.
really looking. Let's look after our players
Yeah.
mentally.
Yeah.
Let's teach him how to perform at
Yep.
his best. So always been told, do not actually have any peaks and troughs. Approach them in the same way. So I'm almost flat. I've learned this over the years. I almost try to stay as a flat line rather than going like this
Yeah. Yeah.
to have consistency. However, speaking about families, that does not help, because my wife always says you dead inside because you don't show any high emotions or low emotions.
Yeah.
You always try to stay on the same line, almost like a flat line.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because of playing professional sports all my life, and I've retired about 8 times and have come back out of retirement because people ask me to play when somebody
Yeah.
gets injured.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
42 and a half now and still played 10 games recently for
Yeah.
for Bristol. Um, it's it's learning that, and it's almost like, again, you're looking back, so, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't show my kids, over the top positive emotion or over the
Yeah.
top
Yeah. Yeah.
negative emotion. So
Yeah.
that's another sacrifice of where I've really missed out, and you can't reverse it.
Yep.
Some things you can reverse, and some things you can't. And this is where the most frustration come in, that you can't bring those things back.
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
your kids developed, and now perhaps my youngest acts like me because they
Yeah.
mimic you.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
So we've kind of touched on briefly before. We've mentioned about the kind of personal sacrifices to yourself, and then the sacrifices that your family made for you. Would you say there's been like one? What would you say has been the biggest personal kind of sacrifice that you've had to kind of come through to make it as a professional?
Um, I didn't approach it as going through my career. I didn't approach it as in knowing that I was making almost like
Yeah.
didn't know I was making these sacrifices.
Yeah.
It only
Yeah.
becomes clear and evident now,
Yeah.
right at
Okay.
the
Yeah.
end when you come out.
Yeah.
And the one thing if I had to take something back, is to have an education.
Right. Okay.
I've put everything, all my eggs in one basket, if you
Yeah.
will, because at a very early age of 19, I was offered a professional contract, which it was quite good money.
Yeah.
So the focus just went whoosh, just
Yeah.
into one thing. Whereas I also had offers for a scholarship in the same time to go
Okay.
one of the top schools and get a
Yeah.
free education in the United States, which is quite expensive, and it's quite a really good sort of they're really good schools.
Yeah.
So what I could have done, and I could have got to university, sacrificed 3 or 4 years, still playing at the really good level at
Yeah.
this university setup,
Yep.
get the education under my belt, and then still would have pursued the NHL dream.
Okay.
However, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Perhaps maybe I was too young to make these kind of decisions,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe I didn't get, a steer
Yeah.
because again, my parents weren't around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, you can't get those things back. So that's my biggest regret of not actually getting education set up
Okay.
where I
Yeah.
could have for free,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
potentially. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's probably my biggest regret.
Okay. So when you kind of look back on your career and you look at the journey, both kind of positively and like kind of negatively, physically and mentally, would you say climbing the mountain has been worth the view for you?
It's a very difficult one. If you say it with your heart, then it's probably was worth it because
Okay.
the high emotions that you got
Yeah.
from that journey at the
Yeah.
certain, timings of that. For example, winning world championships, being
Yeah. Yeah.
drafted, you know, that's the, you know, playing few games in the NHL. That was
Yeah.
like the emotion was so high. I remember playing my first game in the NHL that on the way back when the game finished, I managed to score a goal as well. So my
Yeah. Yeah.
first game, I managed to score a goal. So I was so emotionally high, effectively, that when I got into a car, I tried to drive to my hotel, and it almost blacked out. Not blacked out. The next thing you know, I was on the motorway, completely in a different direction. I
Yeah.
was an hour. I drove for an hour in a completely different direction. I didn't even know about it because all I was thinking about how am I going to tell my dad, like how am I
Yeah.
going to
Oh.
keep replaying this moment, keep replaying that goal, because So you can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
now back to the education. If you would
Hmm.
have asked me, it's that cliche question: if you have another chance, would you have done things differently?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would have said straight away, yes. I could have
Right.
done
Okay.
so many things differently. Not only changed, maybe not going out as much throughout my
Yeah.
early days of my professional career,
Okay.
focusing more on, training
Yeah.
or, rest,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, yes, I can name so many different things that could have gone wrong. So, is it worth it? Emotion wise, yes. But practicality
Yeah.
of, for example, now barely walking or my shoulder doesn't work,
Yeah.
probably had million concussions. God, what else knows? It's all coming out. It's all coming out now from the woodworks when I get up in the morning. It is
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, I feel 70. So no, it's not worth it from
Yeah.
that element of things. And
Okay.
therefore, that also turns me off by putting my kids into hockey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Knowledge that we have now about concussions,
Yeah.
knowledge about how much damage you do to your body with this contact sport, like rugby
Yeah.
and hockey, is just terrifies me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Watching and knowing, like my friend who I played with here for Cardiff,
Yep.
unfortunately passed away from having LAS.
Wow. Right.
Um,
Okay.
and it was the most horrendous thing that I witnessed, and never mind his family to go through.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing more and more and more of these LAS stories, and
Yeah.
but you always naturally start panicking. You're linking yourself to that, all these, symptoms, or knowing how much damage you've done to your own brain, especially the
Yeah.
style of hockey that I've played. I played a
Yeah.
physical game,
Yeah.
almost reckless. But having that knowledge now, I might not have preferred not to do that, I
Okay.
think.
Okay. So at the end of every show, we have a tradition. I ask all our guests if they have a favourite quote or philosophy that they've used throughout the career and their life. And for instance, we've had past guests. We had Jay Lelliott on the show not so long ago. So he was a professional swimmer. He said, "Don't put a limit on anything. If you believe it, you can achieve it." Luke Joyce mentions about hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And Manny Onorise, ex-professional footballer for West Ham, one of the first on the show, he spoke about you can't only work hard on the days that you feel good. So I was wondering if you had anything that you worked off. And I actually read an article, it was, and you'd spoke about your grandfather in your journey, and you mentioned that he took you to most of the practices, didn't really miss any of your games, and he almost taught you your hockey-like kind of mentality. And I read that he said to you, "Never give up, keep digging." So I was wondering whether it was something on a similar lines to that you might.
Well, the two kind of springs to mind, and I'm gonna quote Wayne Gretzky, who
Right.
who else knows best about this is more about performance on the ice.
Yep.
And you've probably heard that with football. You
Yep.
miss one of my favorites is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because when I was playing, part of my issue, my critique from coaches was um, overplaying it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Kind of like I get the scoring opportunity, but I try to make this one extra pass to make it all pretty for someone to just
Yeah. Yeah.
tap it in, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where if I would have just stuck with it, I could
Yeah.
have scored so many more goals for not overcomplicating it. Hence my other motto, and it's gonna sound weird, but my favorite quote is "less is more."
Yeah. Okay.
Once I got older, in fact, every year the older I was getting in terms of playing, I've noticed that the less of just general, hustle, or just like this aimless running around like a headless chicken that I was doing,
Yeah.
I was actually playing better because I
Okay.
now was using my mind and using, passing the puck, or
Yeah.
using your teammates, being mature in the game almost
Yeah.
is so much more effective, so much better. So it's not sometimes about aimless just effort, just
Yeah.
pure effort. It doesn't achieve a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think I realized that less is more. You just need quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
that's what worked for me.
Yeah. Okay. So what's next in your journey? Is there any kind of like future projects that you're involved with, or any ventures that you'd like to kind
I've
of share with
Yeah,
us?
I mean that was the whole thing about the education that I've mentioned before. I mean,
Okay.
I didn't acquire a university degree or anything.
Okay. Yeah.
So I did try so many different things. I went into insurance because I started to do things alongside hockey because I
Yeah.
knew that the end is coming soon or at some point, and I was starting to get involved with so many different things. I mean,
Okay.
my wife had a cleaning company. I got into health and safety,
Yeah.
so that was my office career start where I started
Hmm.
doing health and safety. I now moved to project management.
Okay.
I did a couple of courses on project management. In fact, that's what I'm kind of doing right now. We're working along with Welsh government on pop-up projects, for example, like the COVID when
Okay.
that
Yeah.
started. So enjoyed doing that. COVID relief, and then after the back of that, another project popped up with Ukrainian refugees. So that's
Okay.
what I'm
Yeah.
doing now because of my
Brilliant.
language as well. Because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
speak fluent Russian and I know
Yeah.
a little bit of Ukrainian. Don't speak it, but I understand it. We help process all the Ukrainian refugees in, and I
Ah,
particularly my department deals with anything that goes off script,
very
anything
good.
complicated, because I can investigate it obviously with the language,
Yeah.
and help out. We processing them in, helping them out, find housing, start new life effectively for some. Some of
Okay.
them go back, then just all logistics and medical stuff. It's just endless
Yeah. Yeah.
for the poor people.
So I think with that, that'll probably resonate with you quite well with your journey as well, won't it? Really, from how your journey was when you was younger to kind of like moving countries to having your
Exactly. So
professional
I've done.
hockey career. So
I've lived very
brilliant.
nomad style of life. I kind of
Yeah.
immigrated a few times. I mean, my family followed me to Canada then
Yeah.
from Israel. So everywhere I went, they followed me. Not
Uh,
to UK because I said that's enough. Following me around the world. But yeah, I know the journey that. Not exactly the journey that they're on because it's
yep.
just horrendous what some of them have to go
Yep.
through. But I can kind of resonate.
Yeah, definitely. So, Max, thank you so much for being a guest on Elite Children, a Family Portrait. I'm sure the listeners at home can definitely see they're not alone in raising elite level children. And from briefly kind of getting to know you over the last couple of days and reading and hearing different stories today, words like determination, resilience, motivation, bravery, a very, very humble guy. Because from reading up on your story, you was a huge professional who achieved so much. So you're a very humble and dedicated guy as well. I'm sure with a mindset and a personality like that, any future ventures or projects that you get involved will be a huge success. So Max Birbraer, thank you so much for being on our show. Thank you.
Oh, thanks so much for having me and for the kind words at the end. They just did. You sometimes don't realize, but we have another battle ahead now. The real life, the office life starts now.
Oh, thank you very much. Lovely to meet
Thank
you.
you. We'll speak again. Thanks.
Thank you.